Plan this, but I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. It's the hardest decision of my life. I'm still in pain. It's been 4 years of this injury pain rehab cycle, and it's taken my joy of this game away. I want to thank football for so many wonderful moments in my life. Learn, change in so many meaningful ways. It's the greatest team sport in the world.
This is startling news over the weekend. And again, if Andrew Luck gets into the Hall of Fame, if he never plays again, he could get in at the age of 35 or 36. The pressure is on Bob Carpenter, who's the only Hall of Fame quarterback to be enshrined before the age of 40.
Has to be someone with injuries. Aikman had the concussions, but I'm going to go with Joe Namath, the bad knees. I don't know if he's a first ballot guy, but I'm going to guess him.
You talked yourself out of it again. He talked himself. This is so funny. He talked himself out of the answer. This is the second consecutive time that we put you up here. You have mentioned the correct answer in your preamble.
Who had it?
And then got a different direction. Troy Aikman. Graziano had it right. Okay, there it is.
Trust.
Maybe Andrew Luck becomes the second. Meanwhile, yesterday, the entire football world was weighing in on Luck's decision, including his former coach, Bruce Arians.
Just knowing his toughness and his mental toughness, this does surprise me. I mean, something's got to be wrong somewhere. I know, because he loves the game so much, you know. So to see it, that was very disheartening.
We're looked at as superheroes, as these not human beings, and for him to have that human element, express it in the press conference after the game, go and talk to the media, answer questions, I thought that was really big.
This game is tough as it is, and it's impossible to play if you're 50% in and 50% out. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm proud of him. I was happy for him. Feels like he's at peace with this whole thing, and that's all I care about.
All right, among the many others reacting, T.Y. Hilton, Colts wide receiver, posted this collage that you see, and his caption says, "Every time I think about it, tears start to flow. No one understands you like I do. Our bond is one of a kind. I've decided to dedicate my season to my best friend. I love you, 12. Hashtag Luck to Hilton." I want to bring in another one of Andrew Luck's former teammates here. This is Pat McAfee, who's going to be a part of our show going forward through this football season. Good to see you, Pat, and you're there in Indianapolis. Let me just get your initial reaction. When you first heard this Saturday night, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I thought somebody hacked into into Schefter's Twitter account. Honestly, I thought he was getting trolled. I sent him a text telling him he needs to change his password, because this news came out of left field, I think, for everybody. I think if you talk to anybody in Indianapolis, anybody in the football world, anybody even in the pop culture world, this is something that nobody could have expected. You're talking about a once-in-a-generation quarterback. It's being said a lot, but it's real. The guy is incredible in between the lines, and to hear he's hanging him up, I was flabbergasted. I thought Schefter was getting trolled, and honestly, I didn't believe it. Until that press conference, I truly didn't believe it was coming to fruition.
And now that it's real, what can you tell us about Andrew Luck? A lot of people, all of us, have seen him play. Not all of us know him as you do. You talk about what he was between the lines. How about otherwise? What can you tell us about Andrew Luck?
He was such a nice character of an individual. I mean, you take this guy who's the prototype for an NFL quarterback. He's big, he's strong, he's incredibly smart. He's got this neck beard. He's been hailed as the next John Elway literally since high school. Then he gets to Stanford. He's supposed to be this next coming of age guy, and all he did was handle it with grace and humility. He was incredibly nice to everybody. He even said it whenever he was getting speared by defensive linemen. Nice hit. He was just a guy that you were lucky to have on your team. You were lucky to watch work. And honestly, he was a guy that I can honestly tell my kids, like, hey, I was lucky to play with Andrew Luck. He had to fill in a role that nobody would have been able to do, trying to replace Peyton Manning, who got cut, by the way, from the Indianapolis Colts. And all he did was show up and show out. And I think everybody who got a chance to play alongside Andrew Luck would say the exact same thing. Incredible human, super nerd, super athlete. And that's not normal, I don't think. And I don't know if we'll ever see another one.
You mentioned the hits that he took and the way he reacted. He had a lot of practice at that because he got hit a lot. How would you describe, if you look back, right now it's ironic, I suppose, on some level. They've put together this really good team, including a good offensive line, just in time for him to have to walk away. But how would you describe the way the Colts surrounded him during the early part of his career?
Yeah, it was abysmal. I mean, that's the only way to describe it is abysmal. And obviously, as a punter, I'm paying attention to the offense, how they're doing, because I might have to go out if they fail. And every time you just saw him get slobber knocked off of his rocker, it was a scary situation. And I know that a lot of the guys were friends with him that were on the offensive line, and I was friends with a lot of the guys that were on the offensive line. But at some point in his early years, we needed somebody to stand up and say, I'm not going to let our once in a generation first pick of the NFL draft quarterback continue to get slammed the way he does. Now, granted, because of his mental toughness that Bruce Arians just referred to and his physical toughness, all he did was continue to get up, get up, get up. But those of us who got a chance to see him in the training room and in the locker room after games, he was beat up on a very regular basis, but he never let anybody else really know about it. And I think that is why, and I never like to make military comparisons because what they're doing is much more serious than us, but that's why that guy was a warrior on the football field. And I think that injury to his shoulder, his kidney, everything he's got going on, he made a decision that he wasn't going to battle through another one of those injuries with himself, and he had to stick to it this year whenever this ankle injury started popping up.
Pat, quickly, a lot of people are reacting a lot of different ways to the way the fans acted when this news was breaking while he's on the field, the booing that he heard. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's a regrettable decision. I think the 1,000, maybe a couple thousand people that were at the end of a third preseason game that stuck around in the stadium probably had a couple adult beverages, adult pops, and it's a very regrettable decision. But you have to remember, 2 years ago, those same diehard fans were told that Andrew Luck was coming back. He sat out the entire season. This year, they're told he's coming back, and now he retires. So, yes, they regret their booing. I would assume their initial reaction was of anger, and they make Indianapolis Colts fans look bad, which I don't appreciate. I know that the Colts and our organization and our city will make it up to Andrew because that guy deserves every positive thing being said about him, not only for what he did for the Colts, but the city of Indianapolis.
Pat, good to see you this morning. Thanks for jumping in, and we'll see you here as soon as we can get you here to New York. That's Pat McAfee. Let me get you to a different quarterback situation. That's the one in Washington where they have named Case Keenum their starting quarterback for Week 1. He beats out Dwayne Haskins for the starting job while Colt McCoy is still dealing with issues from the broken right leg that he suffered in December. Now, let me put some numbers up. Haskins and Keenum had basically identical numbers in the preseason. The big difference, the 2 interceptions that the rookie threw. Washington's head coach Jay Gruden did tell our John Keim, quote, the experience factor is something you really lean upon. Keenum has 54 starts in his NFL career. Obviously had that one great year in 2017 in Washington. But let's make sure everyone understands the extenuating circumstances. This is one of our jobs here, is to make sure that if there's stuff you don't already know about, we can explain it to you. What is one very big factor in this decision that was made yesterday?
The question is Washington ready for Haskins to be its starter? Are they in good enough shape as a roster for him to succeed? And the answer right now is definitely no. Trent Williams, their left tackle, continues to hold out. No end in sight there. I don't think you're going to put your rookie quarterback that you took in the first round behind a substandard offensive line. And, of course, the receiver questions there. We don't know what they have in the receiving core. That has to flesh itself out. So, people look and say, is this guy ready or not? That's a different question from, is the team ready to put him in the best possible position to succeed?
I want to come back to you on Trent Williams quickly, but obviously you know Dwayne. For those who don't know, Bob, you're in Columbus, you host radio in Columbus, you know Dwayne. Obviously you've seen every throw Dwayne Haskins has ever made. What did you think of this decision?
Well, I think Dwayne's ready to go. He's proven that in the preseason. He makes second-level throws, and outside of the interceptions to start it, he's been really good, almost flawless. But I look at what Dan said, they're not ready. And we're talking about Andrew Luck today because they started him and they weren't ready up front. And you wasted a guy's career because he got so beat up early on. They don't need this to happen to Dwayne Haskins. You mentioned Trent Williams, Eric Flowers, their left guard, not really playing well also. So let him sit, build some confidence, and let him go in when it's time.
Can I ask you about the Trent Williams situation? This is a holdout. We've talked about Zeke ad nauseum and all that. Where is that going to go?
Very strange situation because it's not just about wanting a new contract. It's about a situation that he had with the team's medical staff and an issue he had this offseason. A lot of hard feelings that are a long way from being smoothed out. They may end up having to trade him. They may end up having to trade him.
We're talking about a number 1 pick coming back in return. Is that possible?
Well, that's what they would want, I think. I mean, talking to teams that have checked in on it, I think a number 1 pick is the starting point if there's going to be a discussion about a Trent Williams trade. They still hope they don't have to do it, but it certainly could come to that.
We'll see. There's a lot of offensive line stuff out there that may not be sexy, but it's actually how football games are won and lost. And right now in Washington, They're not ready to put their rookie on the field. As we continue on Get Up, the Colts' chances to get back to the Super Bowl taking obviously an enormous hit. We'll tell you why Jacoby Brissett may be the key to all of this next. Get Up on ESPN.